The movie opens in Sweden, where we meet a woman named Tina who works as a customs agent at an airport. She has a striking, Neanderthal-like appearance and extraordinarily heightened senses. This unusual ability is useful to her job, as she routinely sniffs arriving passengers and detects the illegal items they carry. Unfortunately, her appearance attracts constant stares from others, making her feel alienated and deeply lonely. Later, we see that Tina lives in a secluded house in the woods with her boyfriend, Roland, who is a dog trainer. He has several pet dogs who dislike Tina for some reason and bark aggressively whenever she is near. One day at work, Tina notices a suspicious man and senses that he is hiding something. She and her colleague bring the man aside to inspect his luggage, but nothing unusual is discovered. However, Tina remains certain that he is hiding something, so she asks him to take out his phone, which he does reluctantly. Tina then sniffs the phone and immediately discovers a hidden memory card. This makes the man panic, and he tries to swallow the card, but the agents manage to stop him in time. Later, Tina returns to her position when she suddenly senses a familiar scent, and soon enough, a man named Vor appears. Strangely, he looks remarkably similar to Tina, and she begins going through his bag, where she finds an insect incubator. Tina feels surprisingly drawn to the stranger, and when he asks her if she likes bugs, she finds herself unable to answer. After work, Tina goes to visit her father in a nursing home where the two go for a walk. During their conversation, her father asks if she is still dating Roland and whether they sleep together. Tina feels uncomfortable with the question, so her father clarifies that he just does not want Roland to take advantage of her. He believes Roland is only with her because she owns the house and pays all the bills. But Tina doesn't seem to mind and responds that she lives with him because she likes having someone around. The next day, Tina meets a police officer named Agneta, who reveals that the memory card found on the man was filled with pornographic videos involving children. She asks her how she managed to detect it, and Tina explains that she has a unique ability to sense emotions such as guilt and shame. Agneta is amazed by this and requests her help in catching more criminals, to which Tina agrees. When Tina returns home, the dogs bark aggressively at her again, which irritates her. She overhears Roland talking to another woman on the phone, but ignores it, even though it makes her feel uneasy. Days later, Vor returns from his trip, and Tina checks his luggage, but finds nothing suspicious. But she's certain that he is hiding something and assigns her male co-worker to take Vor into another room for a thorough search. However, when the agent comes out, he tells Tina how embarrassing it was, because it turns out Vor actually has female genitalia, not male. Tina is stunned and suggests that maybe he could have had surgery, but the agent isn't sure. He also mentions that Vor had a distinct tail-like scar on his back. Later, Tina goes to apologize to Vor and tells him he can file a complaint against them if he wishes, but Vor doesn't seem to mind and says he moves around a lot and doesn't stay in one place for long. Before leaving, he also tells her his name and gives her the address of the hostel where he is staying. After work, Tina goes to see her father again and asks about the scar on her tailbone. He then tells her that she fell from a tree and tripped over a rock when she was just 3 years old. Tina finds this surprising because she doesn't remember ever being in the hospital, so her father explains that it's because she was too young to remember. Later, while Tina is returning home, she meets a neighbor who asks for her help to take his wife to the hospital as she is about to give birth. Tina, being a kind-hearted person, agrees and drives them to the hospital in the pouring rain. That night, while Tina is in bed, a drunk Roland arrives and tries to get intimate with her, but she refuses, saying it is painful. He continues to pressure, claiming he has needs too, but she refuses again and finally pushes him off the bed. The next day, Tina arrives at the hostel where Vor is staying and finds him collecting some worms. He then offers her one to eat, but she refuses and says it's disgusting. But when Vor continues to insist, Tina finally swallows a worm and finds it surprisingly delicious. She then asks about his hostel, and he claims it's not that good, but he has no other choice. That night, Tina brings Vor to her house, where the dogs begin aggressively barking at them, but Vor aggressively grunts at the dogs, which surprisingly calms them down. Upon entering the house, Tina introduces Vor to Roland as their new tenant who will be staying in the guest room. Roland finds the man very strange and doesn't like the idea of him staying, but he has no choice but to agree. Next, Tina takes Vor to his room, where he asks about a scar on her head. Tina responds that it's from a lightning strike, after which Vor shows his own scar on his chest, which is also from lightning. During their chat, he suddenly gets closer and tries to kiss her, but Tina feels uncomfortable and quickly leaves. The next day, Tina and an undercover police officer arrive in front of a building to spy on a suspected pedophile. They soon notice a man entering the building, and Tina smells something foul on that man, so they decide to follow him. They soon arrive in front of an apartment where Tina gets close to the door and tries to smell when they hear a baby crying. Moments later, a couple opens the door and is stunned by the strangers lurking outside their apartment. The officer then asks about the baby inside, but the couple claims there is no baby and that they must have been mistaken. When they threaten to complain, Tina and the officer have no choice but to leave. Later, they report the situation to Agneta and say they are certain that there was a baby inside the apartment, but it isn't registered anywhere. Agneta claims they cannot arrest anyone without concrete evidence and asks them to work on that first. Upon returning home, Tina goes to the woods to collect mushrooms with Vor, and during this time, they get very close. Tina admits that she felt special as a child, and when she grew up, she realized that she was an ordinary person with defective chromosomes. Vor claims she isn't defective, so Tina points between her legs and says there is something wrong there and she can't have kids. However, he assures her there is nothing wrong and even states that she is better than humans, which leaves her confused. Later, Tina goes to visit her neighbors, who have just returned from the hospital with their newborn. Surprisingly, Vor also shows up there to borrow a saucepan and introduces himself to the neighbors. His attention is then drawn to the newborn, so he excitedly begins to interact with the baby. In the evening, Vor begins to feel immense pain, as if he is in labor, so he hurriedly heads to the forest. He then pulls off his pants, and after some excruciating effort, he finally gives birth to a baby. The next day, Tina and the police officer arrive at the building again and notice that the suspected pedophiles are outside. They break into the apartment and find a child's crib there, which shocks them. Tina smells something disgusting nearby, so she approaches a trophy, inside which they find a camera. Their eyes then widen in horror when they see several videos of children being abused by the pedophiles. With this proof, the police waste no time arresting the couple and taking them into custody, but the pervert denies any involvement in the crime, even though his DNA and fingerprints have already been found on the camera. In the next scene, Tina is at home when it begins to rain heavily, and the thunderstorm and lightning terrify her. Moments later, Vor arrives, and he is also equally terrified, so the two hold each other closely and hide under a table. After the thunderstorm passes, the duo heads to the forest, where Vor tells Tina she is beautiful and tries to get closer to her. This makes Tina very excited, and she begins growling before they start passionately kissing. Then, something bizarre happens when Tina pulls off her pants, and something begins growing from her legs, which looks like male genitals. She is excited by this development and ends up making love to Vor. After they're done, Tina asks Vor about her identity, so he reveals that they aren't humans, but trolls, and they have tails at birth, which are cut off. He explains that they belong to a different species, which used to be tortured by humans in the past. He also states there is a group of trolls in Finland, and it is impossible to find them, so only they can find you. He offers to take Tina to Finland, to which she also excitedly agrees. In the next few days, the two grow very close together, and they run barefoot in the forest, bathe in the lake, and make love. One day, Vor tells Tina that he has been waiting for the day when the trolls will take revenge on humans. He reveals how some humans performed experiments on his parents, which eventually led to their deaths. After that, Vor was transferred from one shelter to another, where he was continuously abused by people. He claims that humans are terrible, to which Tina agrees and reveals how she just helped the police catch pedophiles who appeared to be a normal couple from the outside. Vor then states that all humans are dangerous and they don't hesitate to hurt their own children, but Tina insists that not everyone is like that, as her father is a good person. However, Vor disagrees and says that her father is also a liar who has deceived her whole life. In the next scene, Tina arrives at the nursing home to meet her father and begins asking him several questions about her identity. She explains how she has felt like a freak all her life and was constantly bullied, but her father never said anything. However, her yelling scares her father, and he refuses to tell her anything unless she calms down first. Tina wants to know about her real parents, but the old man becomes increasingly distressed, which prompts a nurse to come to his aid and ask Tina to leave. Upon returning home, Tina is very angry when a dog begins barking at her, so she growls back at it, which finally calms the animal. Roland asks what's wrong with her, so Tina furiously throws his TV into the bushes and demands that he leave. A confused Roland thinks she is joking at first, but when he realizes she is serious, he finally packs his things and leaves at dawn. Afterwards, Tina goes to Vor's room, but he isn't home, and she finds the fridge covered in tape for some reason. Soon he shows up, and she informs him that she kicked out Roland, which makes Vor happy. She asks him about the tapes on the fridge, but he states that he needs his privacy. Tina then tells him that she doesn't want to live like her old self anymore and wants to embrace her true identity. Vor agrees, and they spend the following days having fun in the woods and enjoying each other's company. One day, a curious Tina arrives at Vor's room in his absence and carefully removes the tape from the fridge. She finds a box inside, and when she opens it, she is stunned to see a strange baby. Scared, Tina immediately puts the box back in the fridge and places the tape over it again. The scene then cuts to the police station, where the cops are interrogating the pedophile couple. The woman says they never hurt the babies and just filmed them to sell the videos. The cops then ask where they got the babies from, to which she reveals they were delivered by a man she had only met once. She further reveals that her husband knows the man very well and can take the cops to him. In the next scene, we see the pedophile leader taking the cops to meet the supposed man who supplied them with the babies. But along the way, something bizarre happens when a moose appears in front of the car, causing the vehicle to stop. While the cops are distracted, someone suddenly snatches the pedophile out of the car and breaks his skull with one blow. The killer disappears within seconds, leaving the cops confused about what just happened. Sometime later, several other officers arrive along with Tina, who is horrified to see the dead man. An officer asks if she can detect anything at the crime scene, but Tina says no, even though it's clearly not true. She then follows a scent and soon comes across Vor, who is hiding in the woods. Tina angrily confronts him about his actions, and Vor explains that he had to kill the pedophile, who was about to lead the cops to him. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that Vor is a criminal who steals human babies and supplies them to the pedophiles. This leaves Tina utterly disgusted, but Vor tries to justify himself, saying he hates humans and he's only helping them to bring pain to their own race. Next, Tina asks about the thing in her fridge, so Vor reveals it is called Hisi, or a changeling, which is an unfertilized troll embryo. He explains that he regularly gives birth to this creature, but it never survives for long. It may look like a human infant, but its body is soft and malleable, it cannot feel anything, and its only functions are to eat and sleep. He thus secretly swaps them with real human babies, which he then supplies to the pedophiles, so that the human race can suffer. Upon hearing this, Tina feels sick in her stomach and growls at him as if to attack, but she soon stops herself and walks away. Sometime later, Tina is walking in the woods when she hears an ambulance siren and rushes to check. She arrives at her neighbor's place, who explains that she had left for a few minutes, and upon returning, something happened to the child. Tina then checks the baby, and her eyes widen in horror when she realizes it isn't a human child, but the changeling Vor had swapped. The furious woman goes to confront Vor, but he is already gone, and there is nothing in the fridge. She finds a note on the table, in which he reminds her that she is not human, and asks her to meet him at the ferry that night so they can leave together. In the evening, we see Vor at the ferry, and his eyes light up with joy when Tina approaches him. He tries to convince her that they have a mission and that together they can revive their tribe and take revenge on the humans. But Tina refuses to help him and says that even though some humans may have done bad things to her species, she will not turn evil or hurt them. Then, in a shocking twist, several cops arrive to arrest Vor, and it turns out that it was Tina who called them. Vor is handcuffed, but he easily pushes the cops aside and throws himself into the water. The officers conduct a thorough search, but they cannot find him anywhere, and they assume he must have drowned. The scene then cuts to a few days later, where Tina decides to bring her father at her home, as she feels very alone. When he arrives, the man finally decides to tell the truth about her past and admits he is not her biological father. He explains that he lost his wife many years ago, and all he ever wanted was a child to raise. Back then, he used to work in a psychiatric clinic where Tina's parents were kept, alongside many other trolls. It turns out the couple didn't survive for long, and Tina was left all alone, so he took her in. He also reveals that her real name is Riva, which was given to her by her parents. The old man then tells Tina the location behind the hospital where her real parents are buried. Upon hearing this, Tina immediately heads to visit the old hospital, where she finds her parents' graves and becomes sad. The scene then cuts to months later, when one day, Tina arrives home and notices a package at her doorstep. Upon opening it, she is stunned to find a baby troll with a tail and hair, as well as a postcard from Finland. She understands that Vor somehow managed to survive, and that the baby is her own. This makes Tina very overjoyed, since her desire to become a mother has finally come true. The movie then ends as Tina steps outside with the crying child and feeds him worms, finally embracing who she is and the family she was always meant to have.